What is up today, guys? We are back with another video, and we are looking at the article from Bounding Into Comics. It is from Abomination to Gore the God Butcher. Here are 8 powerful Marvel villains ruined by the MCU. So I'm sure that if you're watching this channel, you have seen at least 1 or 2 Marvel movies, either before the MCU or during the MCU. And obviously, when you have a good guy, you're going to have a villain. You're going to have a superhero against a villain, right? So if you're a comic reader or you know somewhat about the villains in the comics, you're going to know that there's going to be changes that Hollywood is going to make in the movies. So this article is pretty much going to break down, in their opinion, the 8 most powerful Marvel villains that are ruined by the MCU. And I'm probably, I'm kind of assuming it's going to be because the underpowered, poorly written, changes that didn't need to be changed. And I'll say, when it comes to my favorite superhero or superheroes, mostly in the MCU or in Marvel in general, mine is Punisher and Doctor Strange. When it comes to Punisher, his villains are usually most of the time normal guys. So usually, or most of the time in the shows or the movies, they're not really hard to make. They're just like maybe a mafia guys, mafiosos, wise guys, maybe a couple supervillains with some powers, but they're more like grounded. When it comes to Doctor Strange, obviously there's going to be more powerful because he has to be matched to someone that's powerful. Doctor Strange is the Sorcerer Supreme, or he was, not in the comics right now, but in the movies he is. So they're going to put he's going to go up against gods and devils and monsters and supernatural people that are very powerful. So let's see what this article has in store, and let's see who they say are the 8 powerful Marvel villains ruined by the MCU. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Starts out with this. The MCU's villain problem is an issue that has haunted the hit franchise since its early days, although most fans would argue that it hit a new high after Avengers Endgame, when the franchise seems to have run out of memorable bad guys. And let's get this out the way right now. What they did to, in my opinion, what they did to Thor and what they did to Hulk in the Avengers Endgame, was really stupid. I feel like I understand that the joke about Thor being really depressed and being upset, and he was getting really overweight and he was just letting himself go. Okay, the joke was there. It lasted. It was a little funny at first, but then the joke lasted way too long and lasted the whole movie. And I feel like he should have just got back in shape, got his spirits back, and just got rid of the fat. It wasn't funny after that. And what they did to the Hulk was just absolutely stupid. The Hulk, he was with Natasha. That was his girl. And Thanos inadvertently killed Natasha, Black Widow, and that was a woman he loved. So why was he so weak? Don't you think that he would have used that anger to become, kind of got out of that talking Hulk and Professor Hulk kind of thing? I understand it was in the comics. I'm just saying it would have been a lot cooler if they got him out of that, went back to the rage machine, the crazy monster, and just fought Thanos like a second time, because he got his butt kicked the first time, but he would have came back with a vengeance when he found out Natasha died. I feel like would have been, it being the last movies for those guys. Well, technically the last movie. At the time, we didn't know what's going to happen then. It would have been better, I feel like, if it would have been the Hulk and Thor had they both got screwed by Thanos in a sense. Thor should have went for the head, and Hulk killed Natasha. Thanos killed Natasha inadvertently. I feel like those guys would have had the most biggest comeback against Thanos. You know what I mean? But I digress. Back to the article. The high standards set by Thanos have proved difficult to replicate, with Kevin Feige hoping to replicate the gravitas in Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom, which, you guys, I'll tell you right now, him coming back as Doctor Doom was kind of whack. In my opinion, he should just stayed Iron Man. If they're going to bring back Robert Downey Jr., I know he died, but if you want to bring him back somehow, some way, through a magical gemstone, then bring him back as Iron Man, or a different alternative to Iron Man, not Doctor Doom. They should have got a new actor, a new face for the villain. That's just what I'm saying. On paper, Doctor Doom should be an easy one to pull off, given his formidable reputation in the comics, which he is a sorcerer and a scientist. Unfortunately, the MCU hasn't always gotten the comics villains right, of course. For a long-running franchise famous for the most resilient superheroes, the MCU's villains are always short-lived and rarely as multi-dimensional as the franchise's range of heroes. I agree. I think they kill off they kill off villains way too quick. A lot of people didn't want them to kill off Killmonger, and they killed him off. And I feel like maybe he should have stayed alive. He could have been a side villain for the next one, or he could have changed his ways. But they killed him off. They killed off a lot of villains. They really do. This trend has led to the trivialization of some of the best villains in Marvel Comics, and these are our top picks. So, starting with Abomination. Actually, the funny thing is Abomination, he is actually, in some comics or in general, he's actually stronger than the Hulk. Sometimes or all the time. And I think the Abomination that was in the 2008 Hulk movie with, what was his name? The 2008 one that came out right after Iron Man was a really good Hulk movie, in my opinion. I'm a Hulk fan. I like him a lot, but I think that it was Edward Norton. I think Edward Norton's Hulk was pretty good. It actually showed the Hulk be a Hulk and Abomination be Abomination. So it says She-Hulk was supposed to become Marvel's Batwoman, but the character's titular show collapsed on its very first try because the writing couldn't bring the heroine to life. The writers also made a mess out of Bruce Banner's biggest villains in the comics when they introduced a pacifist version of Abomination. A pacifist version. The dude is a killer. The whole reason why he turned to Abomination was when he took at least in the movie, he took the super soldier serum that increased his hate. Like, he increased him being a jerk. He was already a jerk, and he's a straight villain. He's a murderer. Pacifist? That's probably another reason why I skipped that show. In the comics, Emil Blonsky, the guy that is the character of Abomination, is a powerhouse of rage and chaos that tests every Avenger that takes him on. He starts as a dangerous spy before becoming more powerful than Hulk when he first gets his powers. So I was right, at least when he first got it. While he isn't the biggest threat to the Avengers, Abomination remains a formidable force. The villain got a great MCU run in The Incredible Hulk, which is Edward Norton, and while the version wasn't as powerful as the comic version, he was still an acceptably ferocious killing machine that posed a real threat to Bruce Banner, and he did. That was a really good last final boss fight at the end of the movie. The toned-down version of him, introduced in She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, I've skipped that, however, makes a joke out of the character. Not only does the character pose zero threat, but he is also reduced to hulking up for fun, which doesn't fit any version of the character at any point in the comics. So he never acts like that, but they decided to make him like that in the She-Hulk comics. The She-Hulk show. Why? Probably to boost up She-Hulk. So yeah, stupid, right? Let's keep going. Whiplash. So you guys run Whiplash. I don't know too much about Whiplash. He has, obviously Whiplash. I think he has a glider in the comics, but he was the villain in Iron Man 2, right? Wasn't a huge fan of Iron Man 2. I liked it better than 3, but 1 I think is the best, played by Mickey Rourke. It says Iron Man 2 proved that having a great catalog of superheroes only works if they are matched with equally formidable villains. Whiplash, which Mickey Rourke is one of the most forgettable MCU villains, which he was. No one ever talks about Whiplash, mostly because he didn't pose any significant threat to the heroes involved. Whiplash had a uniquely designed armor and weapons, which he was pretty much like the evil Tony Stark. I guess he was, I think, Russian, really smart guy. In the beginning, you can see like something happened to him, and then he hated Tony Stark for it. But the character's largely baseless reason for coming after Tony Stark made him inactionable from the outset. Rourke's forced Russian accent and poor choice of humor didn't do too much to improve the character either. He had a couple funny times, but was he supposed to be funny? I don't really think so. When I think of funny villains, I can't really think of a funny villain. I guess Negan was funny from Walking Dead, but he wasn't really supposed to be funny, but he had some good jokes that kind of make me laugh. Whiplash was largely based on two Marvel comic characters, Mark Shirley and Anton Vanko, both of whom are decent villains with a solid backstory compared to the Iron Man 2 incarnation. Even Anton Vanko, the comics version of the Iron Man 2 character, who is largely based on the MCU character, has a simple, more compelling reason to hate Tony Stark, having seen a man in an Iron Man suit destroy his village. So he had a more of a reason to hate Tony Stark. That makes more sense. I think Whiplash was upset with Tony Stark that something happened, or I think his family used to work for Tony Stark, and something happened, I think, with like the death of his father. I don't remember. Iron Man 2, I don't really remember. With Whiplash being reduced to an impactless villain in the film, his image was destroyed across the Marvel Universe, which meant that even his return with the Masters of Evil in Avengers 6 was hardly recognized. He's just a passable character, man. I don't really know many people that talk about Whiplash. I kind of like these smaller characters, but most people just don't talk about them. And I'm sure the movie didn't really help either. The Mandarin, which was, well, another Iron Man villain, which was Iron Man 3. Mandarin, he was a villain for Shang-Chi, I think, but I think the Mandarin was also a villain for Tony Stark, Shang-Chi. And he had magical powers. He has a couple rings. If I'm correct, I could be wrong, but I think one of the MCU's biggest failures is the lack of proper contest between Tony Stark and the Mandarin. The infamous villain who wields the power of the mysterious 10 rings, is Iron Man's arch nemesis. So he is Iron Man's arch nemesis and one of the most powerful villains in the comics, with the high-stakes showdown always anticipated when the two meet. However, with the Infinity Saga in its infancy, the MCU chose to introduce Trevor Slattery, the actor impersonating the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. So he wasn't, if you've seen Iron Man 3, he wasn't even the villain. And he was like an actor for him. Again, Iron Man 3 is even worse than 2 in my opinion. I don't really remember it. I just remember that it wasn't even the Mandarin for real. It wasn't really the Mandarin. And the comics made it really sound like it was. And I'm pretty sure the Mandarin is Asian. Okay, the Mandarin, here we go. The Mandarin got a proper introduction in Shang-Chi, there you go, in The Legend of the Ten Rings, but the character wasn't nearly as impactful as his reputation in the comics. Despite the attempt to correct Iron Man 3's mistake, Slattery remains the most enduring memory of the Mandarin, reducing the character to a joke. So now, he's just a joke. Ben Kingsley played as Trevor, and now he is, Slattery, yeah. Okay, so Trevor Slattery, he is now in the show Wonder Man. They actually brought him back. He's on the new show Wonder Man, which I'm hearing kind of good things about it. Gore the God Butcher. So we're going more into more powerful people, and this guy is from Thor. I remember having the first appearance of Gore the God Butcher at the time, not knowing he was going to be in a movie. I actually sold that comic for a pretty good price. So Christian Bale, obviously you can't go wrong. Christian Bale is one of the best actors in my opinion. It says Thor: Love and Thunder, which I skipped, as you know if you've seen my other videos. No, thank you. Thor: Love and Thunder enjoyed some success, mostly because of Natalie Portman's surprise return as Jane Foster in her emotional storyline. She came back. Oh, well, I didn't know. However, the MCU once again made a total mess of a major supervillain for the comics, as they wouldn't give a villain the chance to express their full potential, which they rarely do, as we were reading this article. In the books, 3 Thors couldn't defeat Gore the God Butcher, who had nearly wiped out all the gods by the time. Thor travels to the future to defeat him. Gore is one of the bloodiest supervillains in Marvel's comics, testing Thor to his very limits, unlike the MCU's version, who is more creepy than dangerous. He's literally called the God Killer. Thor being a god, he's the God Killer. He's like, it sounds like he would be the main threat. He would be that guy. I don't know too much on this movie, so we'll keep going. Despite having the perfect actor for the role, like I said, and the perfect setting to introduce a formidable supernatural villain to the franchise, the MCU did the exact opposite. The only thing the film gets somewhat right is the villain's backstory. Okay, that's a little good, which accurately justifies his hatred for the gods. Okay, I can accept that. I can admire that. You get a good backstory, especially in movies, people can get behind that. However, Gore does all his god butchering off screen, so you do not see it, okay, leaving him with no significant contribution to the plot besides kidnapping children. That's all I gotta say about that. I didn't see the movie, so people want to see action. They want to see the villain doing villainous things. If you're not going to show it, again, I haven't seen the movie, you're not going to show it, it's kind of pointless. Malekith. Okay, another Thor villain. This one is weak. I would say Thor 2, in my opinion, was one of the weakest ones. I would say, if we're going 1 through 4, right? I would say good, not great, good, didn't see it because I don't care to. Here is another formidable villain from Thor's Rogue Gallery that the MCU turned into a generic character in dull gray armor with little justification for being overtly evil. Malekith the Accursed, which he was an elf in the comics, is a force to be reckoned with in the pages of the Marvel comics. I haven't gotten too much into Malekith. I think I read like a couple comics that he was in. He didn't have a big part of him in the comics I read. In the books, well, this will tell us, in the books, he wields the dreaded casket of ancient winters, which can turn entire planets into ice-covered wastelands, which is devastating. He is so powerful that he is the supervillain at the center of the War of the Realms, which I did read, and he was one of the comics' biggest contenders for Avengers film. I do remember him, and yes, he was pretty powerful. He looked a little different than he did in the movie. Despite Christopher Eccleston's, the actor, best efforts to deliver a memorable version of Malekith in Thor: The Dark World, the MCU just didn't have the script for a proper treatment. Not only does he pose no threat to the heroes while wielding a whole Infinity Stone. Yes, remember that? The villains and some heroes and some villains had the Infinity Stones, and at the end, obviously, Thanos gets it. But Malekith is only taken out in the most comical way in the franchise history, crushed by his own ship. That's how much I remember that, because I don't remember his death. I don't remember his death. Forgettable. Moving on. Red Hulk. Okay, I like Red Hulk. Red Hulk is now a anti-hero or superhero. He was a villain at first, but now he is, in the comics, which I'm reading, he is a superhero. He's a good guy, but with, more anger issues than the regular Hulk, I'm assuming. He is, Thaddeus Ross, and in Captain America Brave New World, which I didn't see either, because he's not Captain America, he's Falcon. Harrison Ford played as Thaddeus Ross because the other actor, I forgot his name, he passed away. So it's funny how they will replace him, but they won't recast Black Panther. I don't understand. The introduction of Harrison Ford as General Thaddeus Ross was one of the biggest selling points for Captain America Brave New World. Yes. Brave New World didn't look great. He's not Captain America, so let's bring in Harrison Ford to kind of up those sales, right? After the prolonged absence of Bruce Banner in the franchise since Endgame, Red Hulk was the perfect opportunity to change the character's narrative while keeping the power of the Hulk in future films, albeit as a villain, right? In the comics, Red Hulk is the epitome of military strategy and a master of mental strength whose alter ego is well guarded. Yes, so he knows, he's got great fighting skills, he knows war, he's a general. So even though he's in the Red Hulk, he is the Red Hulk, he still has an ability to think as a general, as a military personnel. When fully unleashed, he poses a bigger threat than the green guy, absorbing energy and emitting intense heat comparable to a nuclear furnace. Excuse me, and also in some of the comics, the Red Hulk, again, is stronger than Green Hulk. However, besides limited screen time that doesn't really allow Ford's Hulk to do anything, the MCU's version of the character is volatile and hardly different from the Green Hulk. The MCU opted for brute strength without focusing on the actual features that Red Hulk a real nightmare in the comics. So I haven't seen this movie. I'm assuming he just comes at the end and he just acts like a maniac and then he gets taken down. After the film became a box office bomb, wow, big surprise, the character is unlikely to appear again anytime soon, continuing the MCU's trend of destroying Marvel villains. Another one bites the dust. MODOK. Oh God, look at this abomination, dude. I saw Ant-Man 1, I saw Ant-Man 2, I skipped Ant-Man 3. 1 was good, Ant-Man and the Wasp was trash, and this looks like even more trash. I skipped this one. MODOK, right? I do not know much about MODOK, I just know he's very smart. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, is another MCU project that didn't live up to the expectations, and most of its failure came down to ineffective villains. Oh, big surprise. The film turned MODOK into an all-around joke, like they seem to always do. Keep it up, Disney. Instead of the relentless menace he is in the comics. Although he isn't the scariest of supervillains, MODOK poses a real extraterrestrial threat to everyone, especially after he becomes a leader of AIM. I don't know too much about MODOK. I think he's very smart. He's capable of like outwitting or just very smart things. I would have to look it up. I don't really know much about MODOK, but he's been around for a long time. The terrible CGI used for the character in the 2023 film is so dumb looking, coupled with his terrible script in which he exists entirely as Kang the Conqueror's behest, left little comparison between the MCU version and the comic character. So he's Kang the Conqueror's like buddy, dude, butler, hangout friend. And as Yellow Jacket is not the MODOK from the comics, the MCU's butchering of the character has left little chance of proper MODOK ever appearing on the screens in the future. I don't think he's going to be missed. I don't think they need to bring him back either. If you're a MODOK fan, great. I just don't know much about that dude. And number 1, Kang the Conqueror. The guy that was supposed to be the next Thanos, right? Played by Jonathan Majors. He was introduced, I didn't watch the show. I think he was introduced, I could be wrong. He was introduced in the Loki show. And then he became the villain in the third Ant-Man movie for some reason. The MCU had great plans for Kang the Conqueror, initially setting him up to become the big bad of the multiverse saga. Unfortunately, the journey got off on the wrong foot when they let their earliest variant get killed by some of the franchise's weakest heroes in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Based on the film's post-credit scene, the plan clearly was to set the powerful Council of Kings as another Thanos-level villain. But that backfired when Jonathan Majors' legal problems forced Disney to cancel the actor's contract and to write the character out of the MCU. So outside of what he was doing in the MCU as the character, something happened, and I'm sure you can look up the video, look up the whole news thing. I'm not going to get into it. He has some things and some legal things outside of the movies, and they're like, we're not going to deal with this or you're out. And you know what? I think not what happened was good. I'm not saying that, but I think it was great timing for Disney because I don't know who was really excited for Kang the Conqueror. I mean, if you were, great, but I didn't really care for Kang the Conqueror. He is he is a very powerful villain in the comics. He's kind of like another Thanos, but he's like in space. If I'm correct, he's very powerful. But it didn't. I'm assuming it wasn't working, and then that thing happened outside of the movie, and all the rest is history. It ends with the villain ended up accomplishing absolutely nothing, leaving his comical defeat and subsequent death at the hands of ants as his lasting memory, which is a total travesty. Ants? Okay, I know it's Ant-Man, but okay. In the comics, Kang is a manipulative genius with an unmatched mastery of time travel, giving him access to knowledge, weapons, and technology that most Marvel characters can't even fathom. Time travel is very powerful in comic book universes. You can do a lot with it. The Avengers stand very little chance against the threat of a full-strength Kang, but that is unlikely to ever happen in the MCU since Marvel doesn't seem interested in recasting the role. So, guys, it's going to end there. I would say that with that being said, you know, these villains, I don't know what they do. A lot of people like the villains. A villain can really make or break a movie. Everyone knows the movie they're going for is that superhero, but a lot of people want to know who's the villain. The villain really helps carry that movie. And all you do is make them a joke. You make them underpowered. You make them weak. I understand it's a 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie. You can't do so much, and you can't just completely kill everyone. But Thanos did, right? But they made part 1 and part 2. That's a good idea. But what I'm saying is, it's like, I don't know what they do with these villains, and a lot of people like the villains. Make a good villain. And I think Thanos was a great villain. And I think in the show on Netflix, Purple Man was a good villain. He was scary, making people do things they didn't want to do. Purple Man wasn't Jessica Jones. One of my favorite villains. That is a scary villain, and he was a regular dude, like just you can just see him walking in New York, a regular guy, right? But you know, guys, I'll leave it at that. What do you think? What do you think that this list is dumb? Do you actually think these villains were actually pretty good, or not? Do you not think so? Do you think this list was pretty straightforward? Guys, if you like more content like this, I review comic book articles, video games, and movies. I like to do reactions and breakdowns of my opinions on what I see in the geek culture, and also doing a little streaming on the side, different games like Halo and any single player game I'm interested in. If you like content like this, subscribe to the channel. Leave a like. Let me know what you think in the comments. It helps the channel out, and we'll have a conversation. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'm out. Bye.